It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Aaron Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome into another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Aaron Saunders on an afternoon drive. Alan, how we doing?
Doing good, man. Long days here at minicamp, but only 3 of them, so we got to cram it all in. And a busy one today, man. A busy one.
Yeah, we get to talk about what somebody else was talking about. That's basically our job today. Talking about Aaron Rodgers, his media availability. How different would you say that setting was, though, from like your normal scrum, if you will, for a player?
I'm pretty sure that's the most media members I've ever seen at UPMC Rooney Sports Complex.
You see like national people at all too, or?
Oh yeah, all kind. Mike Garafolo, Jared Bell, Mike DeCourcy. Although he lives in Pittsburgh, so I mean, I guess he is national though. But like a lot of national media, and then of course, several camera crew from NFL Network and camera crew from ESPN. There's a lot of people there.
Yeah.
It was a significant presence. In fact, I was standing by some of the Steelers PR folks, and they were like taking a picture of all the media. They're like, "Oh my God, look at this!" It was pretty crazy. I've never really seen anything. I mean, there are a lot of us at training camp out in Latrobe, but like I've never seen anything like that at the practice facility. That had to be some kind of record.
Do they have enough space in the couple media rooms that they have in Latrobe to? Yeah.
No, and we're not in our media rooms right now either because they're using them for their like scoreboard video stuff. So nobody has anywhere to work. Kind of a mess. Whatever. I'm not complaining about it. It is what it is. I don't ever expect any preferential treatment from the Steelers, and I appreciate everything I get from them. But definitely a lot of media.
We'll talk about everything that Aaron said there, obviously, but I actually want to start with something else because I know that's going to be time consuming. I want to give it the proper time from the point that we are done with this topic until the end of the episode. I also want to give a shout out to Devin. Devin the House sends in a ton of great questions. We got a super chat from him. Something weird going on right now with the YouTube comments where they're not loading. So Devin, we can either get to that. We'll get to it tomorrow, whether it is us able to read the comments or just shoot me a message again. But I'll reach out to you about that anyway. So, but definitely get to that on tomorrow's episode. But Alan, you got a DM from somebody here as well. LGO, I'm not supposed to be sure if that's supposed to be LGO, but LGO 63 here wanted to know about another wide receiver as we enter wide receiver watch. A name that nobody mentions is Sky Moore for a cheap trade option. It's Pittsburgh connection, obviously low on the depth chart in Kansas City. We'd love to hear your thoughts on another off the grid player.
I've always liked Sky Moore. I feel like he just is sort of a halfway between Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson kind of player. I'm not sure that he really brings what the Steelers need to the wide receiver group in terms of ability to play outside and size. But I mean, I played like high school football with Mike Tomlin's son, and he certainly is a guy that has a built-in connection there. So I wouldn't rule it out. But like to me, that's like a upgrade on Scotty Miller, not like fixing the wide receiver 2 problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's another name that I would just say we've mentioned how many times, whether if it's one of those bottom of the roster guys from like a Houston or New England, maybe even to a lesser degree, honestly, Sky Moore. And that's not like necessarily trying to slight him or anything like that. I really liked him coming out, obviously, had the Pittsburgh connect. I thought there was a good chance they were going to take him the year that we drafted George Pickens, but didn't come to fruition, and his NFL career hasn't turned into what anybody thought. And I'd be curious, like when you look at Kansas City, the way that they're shaping that room out and everything like that, I'm curious on if there's even like a guarantee that he's going to like have to be like, we would have to trade for him. I think there's a chance he just ends up not being on the outs and would get cut.
Yeah, I think it's definitely like if he hadn't gotten hurt last year, I think that might have happened last year. Like once they acquired, who did they get late in the year? They got
Hopkins.
Nuke. Yeah, after he was on the IR. If I think he might have gotten cut if he had been on the roster then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very possible. Obviously, Rashid Rice coming back and everything like that. So I don't know. But certainly I would say a name to watch. Good point, obviously, with the Pittsburgh and Tomlin connection that he has and everything like that. We'll see if anything comes to fruition there. But, some redundancy, obviously, with the skill set, as you mentioned. All right, now as far as what Aaron Rodgers had to say today, met with you guys, obviously talked about the size of the media scrum, but I want to talk about what he had to say within that group as well. First things first, Brooke Pryor getting really down into the nitty-gritty, finding out what that ring was all about. In fact, Aaron Rodgers is married and has been for a couple of months. I knew somebody was going to ask it. If my betting would have probably been on Brooke to do so good on her and actually getting an answer from Aaron on that one. But Alan, anything else from a football perspective, I guess, or non-football perspective that you found interesting that came out of that?
Yeah, man, I think the big thing, I tweeted this quote. He was really asked, like, why do you want to come to the Steelers? And his answer was, well, first and foremost, Mike Tomlin. I was able to, over the last few months, build a relationship with Mike Tomlin unlike one I have ever had with a head coach. And then he went on to say, there are only so many special franchises in the NFL, truly meaningful franchises. I played for one of them for a long time, and this is another one. And I think those are important things for especially frustrated Steelers fans to hear. This is a guy who is a four-time MVP. He's one of the best players in the history of the sport. And to him, the Pittsburgh Steelers are an elite organization, and Mike Tomlin is a one-of-one draw in terms of a head coach he wanted to play for. I think people are perfectly right to be frustrated by the lack of results recently. But that does not change the way the NFL world thinks about Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Absolutely. I mean, how many times have we had this conversation with the way that he's viewed and the organization is viewed by, the outside perspective as opposed to Steelers fans? It's vastly different. And I understand, and don't get me wrong, I understand. I literally just tweeted about this today. I mean, before Aaron said any of this, I put out a tweet about, listen, love the Steelers, obviously, love Steelers fans, love interacting with them, but it drives me nuts how every conversation, no matter what the topic is, somehow we circle all the way back to the team's lack of playoff success since 2016. Like, you can't have a conversation right now in June of 2025 about the state of this football team without it somehow circling back to the fact this team has not won a playoff game since 2016. It drives me nuts. I understand the frustration, but to me, it shouldn't be, the end be all in terms of every topic has to come back to that. And yeah, for Aaron, who's literally been there and done everything in this league, to, have such reverence towards the organization and Mike Tomlin, I think really does speak volumes.
And the other thing I think he really touched on that was interesting to me was that, he was asked, why do you still want to play? Why, you're 41, going to be 42. Why are you still doing this? And I felt like it was interesting that he said, like, this isn't about ego. And in fact, when he's done things because of ego over the course of his career, he's generally regretted them later. He said, that's not what this is. This, like, feels good. Like, I want to do, like, this feels fun. Like, this feels something like I want to do. And I think that, like, a lot of people were saying, like, well, if the Steelers aren't real Super Bowl contenders, why would Aaron Rodgers want to come here? And why would he want to do this? And I think it's very interesting to hear him talk about his motivation in a way that just says, like, I get the feeling that this is reading between the lines a little bit. I get the feeling the last 2 years weren't very fun for him. Like, I get the feeling that he did not enjoy, not to say that there weren't, like, good parts of being a quarterback for the New York Jets, but I get the feeling that he did not enjoy himself the way he would like to over the course of that time, and is really looking forward to a place where he feels like he's a better fit and just having fun playing ball. And I don't get this, like, somebody asked him about, like, why will you be the guy that gets the Steelers back in the playoffs? He was like, hey, man, it's day one of minicamp. Like, I don't know if that's the way Aaron Rodgers would have answered that question his first day with the New York Jets. Like that feels
Right.
like a change to me in perspective about things. That look, I mean, it may be meaningful, it may not be, but it was noteworthy to me that was his answer. And then the other thing, I kind of, he addressed the team, and he didn't really talk about what he said, but I talked to some guys, and it seemed like there was definitely a concerted effort from Rodgers' part to sort of explain the length of time it took him to sign
Mm-hmm.
and sort of assuage concerns that he may not be fully invested in this team. He
Yeah.
wanted to make sure these guys knew why he did what he did and what his outlook is and where he is right now. And I think the words Cam Hayward used were singular purpose, just
Mm.
all about football. And um, I think there's a lot to be said for. I think Aaron Rodgers has this like idyllic version of Pittsburgh in his head. He's of course been surrounded by
A
Mike
lot of Pittsburgh
McCarthy,
people.
like every Pittsburgh
Yeah.
coach, all the way down to
Tom
Pat McAfee,
Capers.
of course,
Yeah.
right? Like, and I don't know that Pittsburgh is going to be for him what he thinks it is, but this is very much feels like a guy who wants to get back to the football that he loved.
Yeah.
And he had that in Green Bay, and I think he thinks he'll have that in Pittsburgh. I hope he's right.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like if you think about it, at the time, the Jets thing, I don't think a lot of people. I mean, I was certainly some, but I think there were a lot of people. Somebody stepped back on that would have said this is going to be an interesting fit to see how he does with New York media and stuff like that, and just like the cultural fit. He'd be a culture shock, obviously, going into a city like that. And he's a California guy, but had played his entire career in Green Bay up until that point. There's a lot of parallels, I think, culturally between Pittsburgh and Green Bay. So I think that there's certainly going to be, from that perspective, something that he can find comforting and homey, if you will. And just outside looking in, I mean, it was 5 days ago that we found out that this was for sure going to be a thing, where it was put out by Jerry Dulac that he was going to sign with the Steelers. And I feel like in such a short period of time, again, just outside looking in, feels like he's won a lot of people on this team and even in the fan base over. And the fan base, they're so fickle, obviously. You could sell them on anything. And I've obviously played into those jokes and stuff on social media as well, saying I was getting rid of all my Bluetooth headphones and stuff like that. I'm all in on Aaron Rodgers. But I think even just like the tweets that I've seen coming from the players, it really seems like he's winning a lot of people over, if they had to be won over, that is.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to Cam Hayward pretty bluntly about like, hey, people think this guy's going to be a distraction. Is that a concern
Yeah.
for you? And he was like, no, I don't see that. I think it's hard. Like what Aaron Rodgers has been in New York is different than what he will be in Green Bay and Pittsburgh. Like he's not asked to be one of the leaders of the team. He's not asked to be the guy driving the bus in terms of the organizational mindset and things like that. He's just a passenger, an important passenger, but a passenger. And I think there's just like I don't know what he could do that would qualify as a distraction. Like I don't know how that would go about. I think I don't get the sense from the guys on the team that this is a concern. I think obviously I didn't talk to Mason Rudolph today. He did talk to some people. Obviously, I assume Mason's and the guys have known. That's the other thing is like the players have known for like at least a week that this was happening.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't get the sense that there's a lot of bad feelings about this process or Aaron Rodgers being in Pittsburgh from almost anyone in that locker room.
Yeah. I mean, that's certainly the sense that I've gotten, assuming that what's going on behind closed doors is also the way that it appears on the surface into the outside world. I think the one thing that I've seen most from the fan base is a concern, I get, and probably similarly because of the way things went down towards the end of last year with Russ. Are things going to go south, a relationship with Arthur Smith, and then, Aaron be leaking stuff to the media, a guy that we've seen in the past, and who knows whether it's going to continue or not, do, a weekly appearance on a podcast and maybe put forth or put out too much information than what the organization would like, and could there be some clashing there? At least from like just what I've seen, I think that's the concern that I see from the fan base in terms of like relationship stuff, is the one between he and Arthur Smith being the one that they feel like could be a point of contention.
Yeah, he really talked up Arthur Smith today. Talked about his sort of connections to the Shanahan McVay tree, and how Rodgers is very comfortable with what he wants to do. Rodgers also very almost aggressively pushed back on the idea that like he's someone that has to have specific plays or wants certain things. Just said like, look, there's been times where I called the 2-minute drill. There's been times I didn't. There's been times I've given 3 plays going into the huddle, and it was my job to be the one to get us in the right one. But I've always just run the offense. And look, I'm going to have input. I'm going to talk to Arthur Smith and see. I'm going to tell him some things I'd like to see. I'm sure he's going to have some things he wants to do, and it's going to be a collaborative process. But I don't get the sense that like Aaron Rodgers is at least coming into this thinking that this is going to be some sort of contentious relationship. I think he's excited to play for Arthur Smith.
Yeah, I mean, certainly even Tom Arth, he said he had the most gorgeous drop back that he's seen still to this day. They were in the same quarterback room in the past, so very complimentary of him from that perspective as well. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's one thing obviously to do all the right things and say all the right things. They're two different things. But like very early in his Steelers tenure here, certainly feels like Aaron's saying all the right things. And I think that's obviously important to get off on the right foot, not necessarily to the outside world, right? Like if the teammates are the ones that he's got to sell on, time that he obviously wasn't with them, and knowing that he was eventually going to be, and the coaches and people inside that building. I don't know. It's just kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah. I don't think, the fan base is, I don't want to say they don't matter, but like, teammates are women, and Cam was very direct and said, like, people inside this room don't care about what happens outside this room. So, like, they're not going to care about, now, stuff like you're saying about, like, throwing the people under the bus on Pat McAfee. Mm-hmm. Sure, that I think counts, but, like, and I think the reason that a lot of people that don't like Aaron Rodgers don't like Aaron Rodgers, which is, like, he has wacky opinions about things or off the wall, whatever. Like the locker room is not going to care about that stuff. Like, right. I'll tell a story from the locker room today. I was talking to a player that I hadn't got to catch up to at the spring, who I know is like a big Trump supporter. And I asked him, I was like, what's the deal? Like, Rudolph and Killebrew got the invite and you didn't. Like, you're kind of third fiddle here. Like, what the heck? You get snubbed. And a guy that I happen to know is not a very big Trump supporter at all, sitting like several lockers away. This is like cracking up laughing. It's like these guys come from all over many places,
melting pot,
all different backgrounds, thoughts, ideas, races, cultures, and like they don't care about that stuff at all. At all. Like, no one is going to care if Aaron Rodgers thinks anything about anything that he has to say on Joe Rogan. Like, that's just not going to matter in the locker room.
Why do I feel like Nick Herbig is going to be super interested in learning all this stuff about Aaron Rodgers? Like, I don't know why specifically him. I just get the sense he's going to have like a million questions about Aaron's life.
Nick Herbig comes off as being very impressionable, so I could see that, right? Like the way he sort of followed TJ around for like 2 years, and now TJ's not there. Nick's in the wind, man. He's just gonna latch on to whoever. I don't know. Yeah,
Aaron,
it's possible.
Tell me about those retreats.
Yeah, I think the idea that like that stuff is gonna matter in the locker room is just a total non-story.
Talked a little bit as well about, the little bit that he's gotten to work with DK Metcalf so far, and how Pat wouldn't stop DMing him on Instagram and stuff like that. The conversations with teammates as well, and the early portions of work that he's gotten to do with them. What did you make of his statements there, and just the way that those relationships are clicking here in the early portions?
It's real early, but I think Guys in those positions just want someone to get them the ball,
Yeah.
and I think, and that's, I mean, maybe oversimplifying it a little bit, but guys get the ball, be happy. Guys who don't get the ball are not going to be happy. And it doesn't really matter. And look, Aaron has been throughout his career the kind of guy where, like, he can definitely go cold on people. You know, where, like, it was pretty
Sure.
clear him and Mike Williams did not have a good relationship in New York. So, like,
Hmm.
I don't want to say it's, like, all going to be great with everybody, but I think for the most part, guys just want the football and they're happy if they can get it and want to find a way to contribute. It's hard to feel like you're not getting a chance to do your job. And that, I think, is something that every receiver goes through.
Yeah, like Pat and him already going to Oakmont like later in the week or whatever. I texted Pat, joked around. I was like, "Are we kidding? You're sucking up like this already?"
He's got to secure those targets, man. He's got to do.
I guess
He's
so.
got a wedding to pay for.
Yeah.
he can't be messing around. He's got to do what he's got to do.
I will say one thing that Aaron said about tight end room as he was kind of going through and talking about different weapons reminded me last year. We talked about it in here. You remember when Rush just literally went down like the entire the entire depth chart in terms of pass catchers and was saying stuff about guys.
It's like
The one
shouting out
thing,
Scotty Miller and
yeah, everybody,
yeah.
anybody. But the one thing that stood out to me when Aaron was talking about the tight ends was comparing Darnell Washington to Mercedes Lewis, maybe his favorite tight end that he's played with in terms of a relationship on and off the field that they had together, which I actually think like we've seen a lot of bad comparisons thrown out there for Darnell Washington because people want him to be more as a receiver. I feel like Mercedes Lewis kind of fair, like especially like later career Mercedes Lewis when he started playing with Aaron. Because he was in a sixth offensive lineman, basically one of the best blockers to ever play that position, but could definitely do a little bit in the pass game. And Aaron was able to bring certain things out of him and definitely get that red zone utilization. I don't know if that resonated with you the same way it did with me, but I'm curious to see how that relationship builds as well.
Yeah, that's a good shout by Aaron, and probably the best comp I've ever seen for Darnell Washington. There was one year, I don't remember what year it was. Mercedes Lewis was on a team with another tight end who was like a more prolific receiver, and I had that guy on my fantasy team, and Mercedes Lewis had like 9 touchdowns. Like he was just like, this is like the bane of my existence was Mercedes Lewis sniping touchdowns from my fan. But like that could totally be Darnell Washington. Like he could. I'm not saying he's going to be this big time part of the receiving game. I think that's probably far fetched. But as a guy who like has an outsized influence in terms of red zone and third down and that kind of thing, like that could totally be him.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when he when he said it, I was like, oh man, because I know how good of a relationship like Aaron, AJ Hawk, David Bakhtiari, Mercedes Lewis is right within that group for guys that Aaron has been attached to. Since his Green Bay days and getting to play with him, like his off the field relationship with him too. I'm kind of going through in my head here. Was there anything else that definitely stood out that you were like, definitely got to mention this that came out of Aaron's mouth today?
No, I mean I think that's pretty much the things Aaron said. Talked to Mike Tomlin a little bit, and just sort of, and then there's TJ Watt stuff and DK Metcalf stuff. Which direction do you want to go next?
Oh boy. I mean, TJ's gonna drag out as well as DK's gonna be there. I guess I'm probably most right now curious about the Mike Tomlin stuff. So I want to know,
So,
like we talked about Aaron talking about Mike. So I'm kind of on the other side of that, what Mike had to say.
yeah, not super expansive on Rodgers. Did probably unnecessarily confirm that he's the starting quarterback. There's not going to be any kind of real
Yeah.
open competition. Obviously, and then also just sort of talking about the process and bringing him in. But I thought it was more interesting what Tomlin had to say about Watt, which was that you know he has no questions about his future with the team, and I'd like him to be here, but he understands why he's not, and that they've been here before, which they haven't really. I can't remember the last time a Steelers player straight up did not attend minicamp, but like there's not very much difference between not
Yeah.
showing up in minicamp and showing up in minicamp and not doing anything. So
Right. Yeah, I wonder. I was wondering if like he was lumping this in with training camp, like it's just one thing in terms of like participation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I talked to a number of players in the locker room. Nobody cares that TJ Watt's not there. In fact, Alex Highsmith honestly sounded a little bit excited about TJ not being there. He said, like, Alex is a pretty soft-spoken guy, and he was like, I get to be the leader. I get to kind of spread my wings a little bit, and it's my 6th year in the league, and I think I'm ready to do that. And that's the kind of growth that you don't get when TJ's there, and you got these 2 young guys, Herbig and Sawyer, who are trying to learn, and Smitty gets to be the guy that teaches them. I think that's like like, to be honest, the Steelers do not care that TJ Watt is not there, and they honestly might be a little happy about it.
Yeah, I mean, well, listen, anytime that you can get somebody with a nickname Smitty to be a leader, we all know how well that goes. So
it's great guys.
I'm picturing him, like calling a puppy, basically trying to get Nick Herbig to come over to him to teach him lessons and stuff like that. I feel like that's just I don't know. I've talked about Nick Herbig being this guy in this podcast quite a bit. Just wanted to be more of a follower, but it's just. I feel like he just has such a love of life, and he just wants to learn everything that he possibly can, both on and off the football field. He's just a sponge. So it's meant to be complimentary, but I feel like people are like, am I calling Nick Herbig like an idiot here? No, not at all. But yeah, it's interesting too, because what you said combined with Denzel Martin's comments about TJ not being there and not missing anything, like, yeah, I mean, I'm in full agreement. I don't know when this is going to get done, when we will see TJ Watt back on the field for the Steelers, but it doesn't. I mean, absolutely internally, nobody's pressing the panic button. Even externally, I've seen like little pockets of the fan base and stuff like that, but I think most people are just, privy. They know what's going on here.
Yeah. I mean, it's a non-issue. No, this stretches out through training camp. Maybe you could say it will become one. I kind of doubt it, but
doubt it will become an issue, or doubt it will stretch out.
Doubt it will become an issue. I think it could stretch out. I mean, I think the Steelers have a real reason to want to wait until they have a wide receiver. They want to keep the flexibility to make a move open to them. And Watt's contract, they have other ways to do it. Like if they fill their 2025 cap space by agreeing to an extension with TJ that has a lot of money in it this year, they could always go back and restructure Freiermuth and Highsmith and probably get there. But it's a lot more convenient for them to leave that door open.
Sure.
And
so when do you think, we've talked a lot about deadlines, obviously, with Aaron, when do you think they would be okay, if we don't acquire a receiver by this date, let's just do the TJ thing and make sure that business is taken care of?
Oh,
I know I'm putting you on the spot.
Middle of training camp, something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but I mean,
it seems like TJ's in a hurry. I don't think they are.
Right.
I also don't get the sense that there's any bad feelings. He said he's been in contact with all the coaches. He's been in contact with the players. This is not like Ayuk, right? Where this was a guy who was honked off at his organization and causing problems and going in and when he was going in, he was trying to stir up drama. Just none of that whatsoever. Got the feeling TJ is at home working hard and hanging out with his kid. Also, the last guy in the world you have to worry about being in shape. You're just, I'm sure he worked harder today than most of the guys who were in minicamp. That's just, I know he worked harder than Cam Hayward did at minicamp today. Cam did a lot of keeping the helmet up. That was about it. It's just the way it goes. That's not what veteran players are not what this time of year is for.
Sure. Oh, actually, real quick, just on that note to go back, I thought it was cool talking about Aaron, very quickly having Will Howard right by his side, sitting next to him. And again, I know that there's people irrationally that have super high hopes for Will Howard, but I will say for a young quarterback, regardless of what his future role is going to be able to sit under Aaron Rodgers, not saying that all of a sudden, learning under Rodgers is going to propel him to being a franchise quarterback. But regardless of what role he has going forward, I think it's super cool for him to just be able to be attached at the hip to this guy for the time being.
Yeah, we know that learning for Aaron Rodgers is not a magic pill because it didn't work for Tom Arth, sadly. Tom has moved on to his life's work, right? I mean, it doesn't.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is Will Howard is going to be the quarterback's coach for somebody in 15 years or so.
Yeah. I think Will has been put in a really, really good position to succeed by the Steelers. He's going to have a rookie year where he basically will not play unless a bunch of bad stuff happens in front of him. And if he does play, there will be no expectations. He's getting to learn from one of the best to ever do it in his room, and also another veteran who seems really dedicated to trying to teach him what he's supposed to be doing in Mason Rudolph. And both of those guys, very similarly, felt a bit scalded by the way they were brought into the NFL by the guys who were ahead of them, and have seemed to be very intentional about trying to pass it along in a different direction to the next generation.
That's another thing real quick before, we wrap up here that I want to bring up, because I've seen people talk about that with Aaron not being a good mentor. Has anybody heard the way that Jordan Love talks about his relationship with Aaron Rodgers? What am I missing here? He spoke.
Oh, he was wonderful. Yeah. I mean, there's no franchise that has had the success in terms of moving from star quarterback to star quarterback like the Green Bay Packers. Arthur Smith, before the Steelers acquired Aaron Rodgers, talked about that being a model they wanted to use for developing Will Howard. And so, yeah, I mean, that's I don't know where that comes from at all, but I mean, I don't know what it was like in. And he had Tyrod Taylor's his backup in New York, so it's not even like he had. They have the young guy who just had to retire. Sadly, what was
Jordan Travis.
Jordan Travis, right? That was the other quarterback. So I mean, yeah,
Zach Wilson.
It's not. Yeah, I guess I don't know.
But even Aaron spoke. I mean, I don't know if Zach, if I can recall specific quotes talked about Aaron, but Aaron always said nice things about Zach. Zach had to play quite a bit, obviously, when Aaron got hurt and stuff. So,
yeah,
I don't know. I'm curious to see how this whole thing goes. It's certainly going to provide us a lot of content on this podcast, and that's why I'm most thankful for this going down, because we're going to have plenty to discuss here regarding Aaron Rodgers. This is just day one of doing so. Alan, until tomorrow, tell the people they can find you.
Hey, Saunders _PGH on X, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky PGH. Steelers Now, site's account, SteelersNow.com. Go there, read the words so I can get paid. Sign up for SM Plus. You're cutting out the middleman. You're getting an ad-free reading experience. Subs only live stream next week. Me, Smitty DB, still working on time, but that'll happen. And then I got an SM Plus story that is pretty good in the works, so stay tuned for that as well. And then subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications here on the YouTube channel. That's free. You don't miss an episode of Morning Rush, Afternoon Drive, practice report, sights and sounds, interviews, all the stuff we got going on. SteelersNow.com, right here on the YouTube channel.
Which we are at 15,800, and this is a little bit too mainstream, but one of my favorite Steelers of all time, Antoine Randall.
Wow, 82. I think my go-to 82 is Yancey Thigpen. Again, slightly too mainstream, but quite a player for a short period of time. And I do recall many, many years ago getting Yancey Thigpen's autograph as a young man out at St. Vincent College. So shout out Yancey Thigpen. And, sticking with 82.
There we go. Good stuff. Also, leave us some comments, your thoughts, anything we talked about today, question for a future episode, all that good stuff. Leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. If you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever your podcast from, just search Steelers Afternoon Drive. Do the same thing on TikTok. You can find me everywhere, Zachary Smith, PGH. For Alan Saunders and myself, thanks for jumping in. Take another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.